Brandon Ashley here, play-by-play for the Abby Canucks. You got it locked in the line change, a Vancouver Canucks podcast.
What's up, Canucks fans, Canucks Nation? Welcome to the line change. Now, past a certain point, we all expected the 25-26 Vancouver Canucks to undergo a massive exodus. The writing was on the wall, the rebuild was announced, and the for sale sign was well and out. But sitting here on the other side of the 2026 NHL trade deadline, that max exodus just hasn't happened. Now, the deadline week itself was surprisingly quiet. We saw the Canucks deal out, of course, Tyler Myers, Connor Garland, and David Camp. If you look back a few months, you can add Kiefer Sherwood and Quinn Hughes to that list, but that's it. Put it this way, there are a lot more Canucks still in this locker room right now than most of us assumed would be here. But don't let the deadline quietness fool you. Management has already acknowledged this is a multi-year project, that being the rebuild. There is still plenty of time to shape this roster by subtraction, and the next major window is the summer of 2026. Today, we're highlighting 6 Canucks who didn't move at the deadline, but who, for one reason or another, should actually be easier to trade this offseason than they were a matter of, a week or so ago. If you were let down by the lack of activity, there is still hope. If you love talking transactions as much as I do, grab a drink. We've got plenty to discuss. So we're going to immediately jump into the first name on this list. And of course, we have none other than Elias Pettersson, who's what's remaining on his contract as of, this upcoming July 1st, 2026. He is, of course, in, as you can see here, year 2 of 8 at $11.6 million per year. He also has a full no-move clause. Now, you knew, of course, he'd be at the top of this list. Even when the rumors were swirling at the deadline, specifically those Detroit Red Wing links, the insiders were all saying the same thing. The summer is a far more likely time for a deal. Why, you may ask? Well, look at the sheer size of that $11.6 million cap hit. Add in a no-move clause and the massive difficulty of integrating a struggling superstar into a new system in the middle of a playoff race. Well, it's a lot to ask of any GM in February. Now that the contract and no-move clause aren't going anywhere, but come July, the landscape, of course, will change. Cap space opens up across the league. Every year, there's a deficit of top-tier talent at center. The summer provides the fresh start environment Pettersson needs. And it gives a acquiring team also months to get him situated, integrated, and mentally ready for the 2026-27 season. It's still a heavy lifting trade, but the probability shifts significantly once the season ends. Personally, I'm still kind of on the fence on if this is actually going to happen and what the Canucks are even going to do. But I guess come summertime, we will actually see what actually goes down and whether or not Elias Pettersson will still be a Vancouver Canuck when the season starts. Moving on to number 2 we have is none other than Jake DeBrusk, who, as you can see, is in year 2 of a 7-year deal, which pays him about $5.5 million per year. He, too, also has a full no-move clause. Now, the bet GMs make in the summer are very different from the bets that they make at the deadline. We know teams were kicking tires on DeBrusk recently, and reports suggested he was open to a move, so the no-move clause wasn't the primary barrier. So why wait? Because at the deadline, GMs look at your current stat line and they panic. DeBrusk is having one of the worst seasons of his career. At the deadline, that's obviously a red flag. In the summer, that's a quote-unquote bounce-back candidate. It's much easier to convince yourself a player will find his game during a training camp reset than it is during a March road trip. A team that misses out on the big fish in free agency is going to look at DeBrusk's entire body of work, not just this 25-26 blip, and see a guy with a shorter commitment than a fresh UFA. Moving on to number 3 we have is Marcus Pettersson, who is in year 1 of a 6-year deal that pays him $5.5 million per year. He also has a no-move clause for the first 3 years of this contract before it turns into a modified no-trade clause for the final 3 years. you can basically copy and paste the Jake DeBrusk logic right here for Marcus Pettersson. Pettersson is also mired in a career worst season. Some fans say the decline started back in Pittsburgh, but NHL GMs still value reliable top four size on the blue line. And the reality in Vancouver is that Zeev Buium and the youngest Pettersson, DPD, are already holding down the left side. There's a bit of a logjam. While Marcus feels older, he's only 29, which is the same age as Jake DeBrusk. There is always a premium on sizable defenders, and if a team can convince themselves his struggles were team-induced, the market for him could be surprisingly robust this summer. So don't be surprised about the potential of a Marcus Pettersson move this summer, although we will see when it comes to the no-move clause. I know Tyler Myers ended up waiving his no-move clause. We've seen no-move clauses waived in the past, but still hold out on this potentially happening. At number 4, we have, of course, Marco Rossi, who is in year 1 of a 3-year deal, which pays him $5 million per year. He is also, I want to make note, he is a restricted free agent. So there's that to contend with as well, but we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. Now, this is an interesting one, of course, because I'm not even sure he should be on the block. The Canucks spent all last summer looking for a young 2C, and they finally got one in the Quinn Hughes trade. At 24 years old, he obviously fits the rebuild timeline absolutely perfectly. However, because he has no trade protection, he is, of course, a massive asset. Center depth is, of course, the second hardest thing to find in this league behind right shot D. Once the free agency frenzy settles and the teams realize they missed out on their targets, Rossi's phone will probably start ringing. Personally, I think they should keep him. Remember, he's been dealing with injuries since he got here. He wasn't playing at 100%. He re-aggravated it, and then he missed some more time. Granted, he is 100% healthy as far as I know now, and he is still, of course, finding his footing. I want to see a full season of a healthy Marco Rossi, the same Marco Rossi who had 62 points last year for the Minnesota Wild. We saw the type of player he can be last year, and that's probably not even scratching the surface of his potential. You paid a premium to get him. Giving up within 12 months feels a little premature, at least for me. But because he's so tradable, he, of course, is on this list. Let's also not forget, as I mentioned earlier, Rossi is a restricted free agent, meaning that the Canucks retain his rights via a qualifying offer, which is 100 to 110% of the previous salary, which probably be around the $5 million mark, as that is obviously currently what he is making. Now, yes, RFAs can sign offer sheets. However, the original team, in this case, the Canucks, can easily match the offer, or if they don't wish to match the offer, they receive draft pick compensation. This all depends on obviously what the salary is, and the draft pick compensation can obviously range from a first round pick to absolutely no compensation whatsoever. Again, I just don't see the Canucks moving Rossi and giving up on him this quickly, especially after how they went out of their way to get this guy. You could also say the same thing for Marcus Pettersson as well. Moving on to the 5th player on this list, we have, of course, Kevin Lankinen, who is in year 1 of a 5-year deal that pays him $4.5 million per year. He does have a no-move clause for the first 2 years of this contract, and then afterwards, for the remainder of it, he has a 15-team no-trade clause. Now, Lankinen was, of course, the default starter at the deadline, which made moving him nearly impossible. You've got Lankinen, an often injured Thatcher Demko, and a newly waiver-eligible Nikita Tolopilo after this season. That's a 3-headed monster that, doesn't work. The Canucks need to move a goalie. Lankinen's no-move clause is a hurdle, but the offseason goalie carousel is real. Once the top UFAs sign, someone is going to be left without a chair when the music stops. That's when you pitch Lankinen on a pseudo-starting role on a winning team. I've made my opinion clear. We cannot have another Artur Silov situation where a young guy like Tolopilo becomes a casualty of an impulse contract, which the Canucks did when they signed Kevin Lankinen to this deal. Obviously, he had a fantastic first year with the Vancouver Canucks. He was on a premium contract during that first year, we signed him super late. He absolutely proved that he deserved this type of money. But this year, he's not really lived up to it, at least in my opinion anyway. Now, we signed Lankinen because he had one good year. We shouldn't let that block our future, which would be Tolopilo. Then last on our list, we have Niels Höglander, who is in year one of a 3-year deal, which pays him $3 million per season. He will be a UFA in 2028 at the end of this contract. Now, this one is about the strong finish. Höglander's first year of his $3 million raise obviously did not go as planned. It's been brutal. 1 goal and 3 points in 25 games, as you guys can see there. But with Connor Garland gone, there are top 6 minutes and power play time that are up for grabs. If Höglander takes those minutes and runs with them over the final month of the season, he becomes the ultimate buy low candidate for a rival team this summer. I've always liked Höglander. I went off, obviously, on Adam Foote recently in a recent video for scratching him just to help Evander Kane reach a milestone. I hate seeing young players' development sacrificed for sentimental milestones, although Höglander has been around for a bit, but he's still only 25 years old. If he gets the ice time he deserves and put up some points, that $3 million contract becomes very movable for a team looking for a young, tenacious winger. Now, out of all of these names, and if I had to pick just one for this team to move on from this summer, most likely, I think I'm going to have to go with Jake DeBrusk. Out of these 6 players, this isn't me taking a knock on DeBrusk at all. The reason I think he's most likely to be moved, as him saying, as what was said earlier, he's open to a change of scenery. He's made that clear that, or I don't know if he's told the team, or, I mean, it's out there that he is open to a move. So he also kind of made it sound like he's not on board for a rebuild, although he did later clarify his comments and kind of, walk them back a little bit. But between him and Elias Pettersson, I see him being the easier to move out. And as was mentioned earlier, teams are going to be looking at his full body of work as opposed to just this season. Now, the deadline might have been a dud for those wanting a total fire sale, but the summer sell-off is where the real work happens. Which of these 6 names do you think is the most likely to be wearing a different jersey come September? Yes, I said September, as remember, we are going to get an earlier start to the season with the new CBA and the official start of an 84-game schedule. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Who out of these 6 players do you think is most likely not to be a Vancouver Canuck at the start of the 2026-2027 season? Let me know. And if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and subscribe to the Line Change, and be sure to have your notifications turned on so don't miss more in-depth analysis of your Vancouver Canucks. Let's take a look at the NHL draft odds real quick, then I'll get into my sponsor. Of course, looking at this, I'm going to go with this one. Detroit Red Wings and the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Red Wings are at a plus 1.5 on the puck line, and the Lightning are at a minus 1.5. Red Wings minus 155, Lightning 130. And then the Red Wings are a plus 170 on the money line and a minus 205 on the money line. Just a quick reminder, these betting odds are subject to change. And of course, please play responsibly. On that note, big shout out and thank you to my sponsor of this video, none other than DraftKings Sportsbook, which is of course a official sports betting partner of the NHL.
DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, is built for the fastest game on ice. With player props and live betting, every shift, every shot, every save gives you options to get in on the game with DraftKings Sportsbook. New customers bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN, that's code THPN, to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino in Kansas, Wager tax pass-through may apply in Illinois, 21 plus in most states. Void in Ontario, restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets, which will expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. This is a limited time offer. Copyright 2026 NHL, all rights reserved. This video has been a presentation of both DraftKings Sportsbook as well as the Hockey Podcast Network. Be sure to check out the network for your favorite podcast covering your favorite team at thehockeypodcastnetwork.com, the home of hockey podcasts, where it's every team, everywhere.
Once again, drop your comments down below. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys on the next line change.